In about 5 days, I'm going on vacation. Today is Monday, my day off work. 4 more shifts, and then I head out on the weekend to my grandparents in New York State, where I will spend a week doing almost nothing except sitting around and reading. I've compiled a bit of a TBR for that week. The first book will depend on whether or not I finish it before I go or not. It is one I have been working on and off for the past week. The Worldly Years, The Life of Lester Pearson, 1949 to 1972, by John English. This is the second book from a series of biographies that I've read by John English. I read a couple of his books on former Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau. This is my first look at his Lester Pearson biographies. This is the second volume in his collection, deals with Pearson's time in external affairs as the Minister of External Affairs, and I think eventually, judging by the dates, with his time as Prime Minister of Canada. I had a little bit of trouble getting into it, but I pushed through that. I think because it's the second in a series, John English assumed that his readers would have read the first and would already be immersed in the story that he has to tell. Basically, he begins this volume with a rundown of the Pearsons, Lester Pearson and his wife, the Pearsons' social life in Ottawa. Not exactly a high point to start off on when you are discussing the life of a former prime minister, of the man who was in part responsible for the creation of the UN peacekeeping force. His social life is very interesting, but there are a lot of other things that are more interesting about him. So I'm about a quarter or a third of the way through this volume, and I will probably sit down and read some more of it later today. But on to a few more of the books that I'm taking with me. I'm planning to read The Illegal by Lawrence Hill. I purchased this a few months ago because it is the 2016 Canada Reads selection, and I put great stock in the CBC's Canada Reads program, and although I didn't love Lawrence Hill's last major book, The Book of Negroes, I think it was published as Someone Knows My Name in every other country of the world except Canada. But The Illegal is the latest big novel by Canadian author Lawrence Hill, and I'm looking forward to checking it out. I believe it is about illegal immigration and a man who is a runner. I don't know all that much about it. I bought it on impulse, but I think it's time I read it. I'm also planning to work my way through most of, if not all, of The Canadian Regime, An Introduction to Parliamentary Government in Canada, 6th edition. I picked this up as kind of a refresher for myself before I start my master's in the fall. This is one of those core texts that students read a lot. I never read it during my undergrad, but I thought it would be interesting to go through a book that discusses Canada's system of government, Canada's governmental institutions. Then there's a book that I bought on impulse, late night Amazon purchase 2 weeks ago. This is Margaret Macmillan's Paris 1919. This is a nonfiction book about the year 1919 and the peace talks and the creation of the so-called New World Order that went on there. It's been mentioned frequently in the past year or so here in Canada as one of the top nonfiction books that people should be reading, and since I'm currently reading Testament of Youth by Vera Brittain, which is a memoir dealing with the years of the First World War, I wanted to get into some more history on that time period. I will admit I haven't really read anything on the First World War since leaving high school. Next up, I have 2 more books I'm taking with me. These are books that I bought based on recommendations I'd seen on other booktube channels. Adrian Fort from Strip Cover Lit, I believe, mentioned this book in a tag video. It sounded interesting to me. I found a copy at a local thrift store. Now is the Hour by Tom Spanbauer, about a young American man who hitchhikes in the 1960s. Should be an interesting read. I love a good novel set in the 60s. And then I bought this one, which had better make me laugh. Erica from The Perks of Books is very excited that I bought it. Meg by Steve Alton. If you want to hear more about this novel about Meg, just go to Erica's channel. She filmed a review a few weeks ago. It should be funny, I hope. Yeah, so that's what I'm planning to read next week as I go on vacation. Kind of my last hurrah before I dive into grad school in September.